Pack-A-Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack-A-Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
I think that although, we're still relatively young, our guys are experienced. And I think that, they've been in a lot of these situations. So, it's just how fast can we get the new guys and some of the younger players that we're going to obviously rely on. How fast can we get them up to speed and acclimated to what we're trying to get done?
Good morning, Packer fans. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day radio show live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. No Andy Herman today or this week. Tommy Wortz, producer Tommy, filling in for Andy Herman over the next week here. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We're going to be joined by Mitch Thunder Nellis here at 8:20 on the Pack-A-Day radio show. That sound you just heard, courtesy of the Packers, was from Matt LaFleur and talking about getting everyone acclimated to what the Green Bay Packers would like to accomplish this season, and specifically talking about how he says the youth is not an issue on this team because it is canceled out by experience. And it got me digging a little bit deeper into the national landscape of how they feel about the Green Bay Packers and comparing that youth versus the experience to see how they might fall versus the rest of the NFL. And specifically, what I wanted to dive into today is PFF's rankings over the month of June. They have a few different lists up here that we're going to go through on today's show. That is projecting all of the standings and the best possible rosters across the NFL and where the Green Bay Packers might fall in there. The top 10 returning head coaches to the NFL for the 2025 season, and a tier list of quarterbacks for the NFL heading into 2025. Spoiler alert, you won't hear a Packer on every list. Whatever one you think it might be, let us know. Nicolay Law Fan Talking text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. We are live, of course, at thefanmilwaukee.com. You can watch us on YouTube now at The Fan Milwaukee. That is the YouTube page, youtube.com/@TheFanMilwaukee. A couple of news and notes over the weekend. Obviously, Brewer game was great. We saw Brewers series was great. The game yesterday, maybe not so much. 2-1 over the weekend against Colorado. Bucks re-signed Bobby Portis. That's exciting for some people. Other people very conflicted on how that might fall for the Milwaukee Bucks. And specifically right now, the Green Bay Packers are the topic of conversation. And Andy Herman, when he hosts the Pack-A-Day radio show, he loves to dive deep into a lot of the nerdier stuff on it and a lot of the more centralized topics of the Green Bay Packers. While I'm in today for Andy, and we're going to broaden this up. We are going to look at what everyone else is saying about the Green Bay Packers, react to that, and then see where we fall on the Green Bay Packers together. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you'll disagree. That's the point of the sports radio topic. I'm excited to get into it. So without further ado, PFF, Pro Football Focus, they are nationally known, very well respected. You see a lot of the stuff on Twitter with PFF grading a lot of players and teams throughout the process. I don't know how their grading process works. It's kind of like the Dewey Decimal System of sports. I have no idea, but somehow we figure it out. We know what numbers go with what. And so PFF, at the beginning of June, Dalton Wasserman and Max Chadwick had ranked the 32 NFL starting lineups ahead of the 2025 season. And I wanted to dive into this because the perspective here at The Fan is that the Packers are going to take another step forward. I believe that the Green Bay Packers are going to be a better team in 2025 than they were in 2024. Much of that is going to be through development and hope as opposed to off-season acquisitions, trades, free agent signings, etc., along those lines. But they have a very young team, as you just heard in that clip from Matt LaFleur, with a third-year starting quarterback now, plenty of weapons on the outside that are coming in that are brand new, and a defense that also has another year under a coordinator that had a very successful first year. When looking at this projected NFL ranking system for PFF, I'll give you a little sneak peek of who the bottom tier teams are. If you go down to who they believe is going to be the worst team in the NFL this season, they have the Cleveland Browns. And I don't think that comes as a surprise to anyone. Joe Flacco starting at quarterback. Running back room is going to be probably rookie Quinshon Judkins, could be Jerome Ford. And the wide receiver room is very thin after Jerry Jeudy. And then looking at who they might have at 20, right? Let's put something in a little bit lower tier, middle of the road. They have the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, a very polarizing QB, but Jonathan Taylor, one of the best backs in the NFL. Michael Pittman Jr., an on-the-rise wide receiver during this time. That's who they have at 20. Now, I would jump to the top 10, but I'm going to jump all the way up to number 1 now. And we'll go down from there where we think you might feel the Green Bay Packers land. At the top of this list, no surprise to anyone, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles, I would say everyone agrees that they are the best team on paper returning back for the 2025 season. Jalen Hurts at QB, however you feel about him, he won a Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley might be the best offensive player that's not a quarterback in the NFL. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, what a duo at wide receiver. Going from there, the next AFC team is number 2, the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews, stacked team on the offensive side. The first team you see in the NFC North is the Detroit Lions. They are the number 3 team overall. Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. They even are comparing the defensive side on these articles as well. So, of course, they're going to have Aiden Hutchinson come back. They got the great linebacking core of Anzalone and Campbell. The Detroit Lions still projected to be the top team in the NFC North. And if you were to ask me today and say, who do you feel is the best team coming back for 2025 in the NFC North, I would probably lean with the Detroit Lions as well. They're a very good team. I know they lost both their coordinators, but as far as the on-talent, paper talent, that is probably where I would go to, the Detroit Lions. Kansas City Chiefs are at 4. No necessary introduction for that. Buffalo Bills at 5. Rams. The Los Angeles Rams are at number 6. That's where I start to raise an eyebrow during this conversation. Because now I'm wondering, well, where will the Green Bay Packers fall on this list? Scroll a little bit farther. Number 7, Houston Texans. The team the Packers beat last year. And they really floundered off at the end of 2024 in a sophomore slump from C.J. Stroud, and Joe Mixon couldn't handle it at the end of the year either. Nico Collins was hurt for a lot of that time as well, too. I understand that. But I don't think the Green Bay Packers will have a less successful season than the Houston Texans. Next team in the division is not the Green Bay Packers. At number 8, it is the Minnesota Vikings. And that is where I start to really question what is being said here. They have J.J. McCarthy, obviously projected as the starting quarterback. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason are their running backs. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison at the wide receiver position. The offense looks great. Defensive side, they brought in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave on the interior defensive line. They have some great edge rushers in Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel. But after that, their linebackers, pretty mediocre on the interior side, in my opinion, in Ivan Pace and Blake Cashman. Their corners, again, Byron Murphy Jr., Isaiah Rodgers. I'm not sold on it. And their safeties, they're bringing back Harrison Smith, who's been in the league for 15 years at this point. And Josh Metellus was a very mid-graded player as well on the defensive side for Minnesota. And they have that as the 8th best roster coming into 2025. And I do not agree with that. That is too high for the Minnesota Vikings, and I still think it's kind of crazy they think the Minnesota Vikings roster coming back next season is better than the Green Bay Packer roster. So where are the Green Bay Packers on this list? Where are the Green Bay Packers, according to PFF, on this list? It's Pack a Day Radio Show, live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Tommy Wortz in for Andy Herman. Any guesses yet? Any guesses? The Green Bay Packers are 13th on this list, according to PFF, for the best roster coming back in 2025. A middle-of-the-road team. 15, 16, right? Middle of the road, maybe just above average at 13. Behind the likes of the Los Angeles Chargers at 12. The Washington Commanders at 11. Maybe disrespecting the Commanders a little bit, honestly. The Buccaneers at 10. The Denver Broncos are at 9. And so when I see the Green Bay Packers projected starting lineup, it goes like this according to PFF. At quarterback, they have Jordan Love. Running backs are Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson. The wide receiver core goes Matthew Golden, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed. Tucker Crafts at tight end. Rasheed Walker, Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. That's the offense. They do not have Jordan Morgan projected to be in the Packers starting offense. On the defensive side, interior guys, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Rashawn Gary, Kingsley Enagbari, and Lucas Van Ness are listed as their edge rushers. Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker on the inside. Nate Hobbs and Keyshawn Nixon at corner. Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams for the Green Bay Packers. I do not understand why you would think the Minnesota Vikings lineup is better than the Green Bay Packers lineup just based on what we read off here on the Pack a Day Radio Show. And I understand that a lot of this is pressure on Jordan Love. There is some uncertainty, it sounds like, with Jordan Love across the national media. But there is not as much uncertainty, it sounds like, with J.J. McCarthy. That's where I start to get confused. Because J.J. McCarthy did not play last year. He's coming off a torn ACL, played in 1 or 2 preseason games. At Michigan, he really didn't impress with his arm. He was a winner, that's for sure. He won a lot of games at Michigan. He also had Jim Harbaugh being one of the best coaches in America at the time at any level, whether it was the NCAA or the NFL. Jordan Love right now sits atop of that list for the Green Bay Packers at the quarterback position. And I don't really understand why you would think that J.J. McCarthy is projected to have a better season than Jordan Love. And that brings me into my next part of where I wanted to go with this. And they also have a quarterback tier ranking for all 32 starters here projected in the National Football League. At the top of that list, they have Tier 1, Elite, it's called. Patrick Mahomes is number 1. I don't think anyone doubts that. I don't think anyone's here to argue that. I would argue Patrick Mahomes should be in a tier of his own. I understand that maybe he's not the most talented anymore, but he wins football games, and if quarterbacks are going to be judged based on how they win football games, Patrick Mahomes is one of the best to do it. Of all time. Not just right now, but of all time. In the same tier, they have Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. No one's arguing Jordan Love should be in that tier, I think. All of those guys, MVP caliber, MVP winners, other than Joe Burrow, they are in a tier above everyone else. Completely agree. At the second tier, the high-end starter tier, it is called. Jalen Hurts. Okay, I understand he won the Super Bowl. Jaden Daniels. Okay, I can get behind probably ranking Jaden Daniels above Jordan Love. Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert. That is in tier 2. That completes tier 2. Are we so sure that Matthew Stafford and Justin Herbert are better than Jordan Love? Jordan Love played 2 less games than everyone last year. He had the 5th best QBR rating in the NFL. He had a pretty fine season. He just was riddled with injuries for most of the year. And we have seen so many different shades of Jordan Love. He has been under much more turmoil than people understand. The offense has shifted multiple times where his first half of his first season, he was not the guy. They didn't want Jordan Love to be the guy. They wanted to get the offense, get the ball somewhere else on the offensive side, and see what can happen. Then when Jordan Love became the man, the year the Packers beat the Dallas Cowboys as the 7th seed in the playoffs, that leading up to that, those 8 weeks before then, he was the best quarterback in the NFL. He was the guy. The first half last season, Jordan Love gets banged up. They wanted Jordan Love to be the guy. He's playing a lot of hero ball. Even though he missed 2 games, when he came back, they wanted Jordan Love to be the guy. Then they understand that Josh Jacobs is probably the best offensive weapon the Green Bay Packers have. That is what Matt LaFleur, at least, was telling everyone. And so then they shifted again to Josh Jacobs being the centerpiece, the focal point, if you will, of the Green Bay Packers offense. So now, heading into 2025, I think a lot of people are anticipating Jordan Love, again, will not be the centerpiece of the Green Bay Packers offense. They will leave that for Josh Jacobs. Continuing this list, Jared Goff is number 9. Geno Smith is number 10. Pause. Again, timeout. Guys, Geno Smith's a fun story. The rejuvenation of his career is great. Everyone was a fan of that. He's playing for the Raiders this year. He's going to be the 10th best quarterback in the NFL on the Raiders this year, not the Seahawks. He will not be on the Seahawks again. On the Raiders. That organization that all it causes is drama and chaos, and there's distractions always in that organization. And we're putting Geno Smith at number 10 on this list. Brock Purdy is at 11. Kind of an underwhelming year last year from Brock Purdy. And the 49ers riddled with injuries all last season. Understood. But again, a lot of chaos, a lot of drama, a lot of guys getting traded out of there. Debo's gone now. Injuries last year were really a problem for San Francisco. Didn't have McCaffrey. Are we expecting Christian McCaffrey to play all 17 games? Because it seems like that never happens. Trent Williams is getting older. He got hurt all last season. Now he's going to be 100% healthy. It's not until you get to number 12, which the tier is titled 3 solid starters, but they need more help. In this tier, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, C.J. Stroud, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa. He is not in the same tier as Tua Tagovailoa. If you take Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill away from Tua, he's not going to be performing the way he is. And I don't want to eliminate the entire offense to grade someone. You should be graded on what your team situation is as well. That's what we just did with Geno Smith. But no shot Tua Tagovailoa is in the same tier as Jordan Love. Dak Prescott, maybe. Regular season success guy. Still really looking to see what he can do when he has a star-studded team around him. And I think the Cowboys, a lot of people in agreement that they have regressed over this time as well. Trevor Lawrence. Sorry, I feel like we're just being told Trevor Lawrence is good. Has anyone seen Trevor Lawrence be good? Actually watched it. Because I feel the same way about Justin Herbert. Now, I think the ceiling is a little bit higher on Justin Herbert, and that's why he gets the nod. But actually watching games, I don't know if I've ever really been like, dang, what a throw by Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence in a game. Or wow, what a comeback by Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert in that game. These are guys that were drafted really high with the expectations to change a franchise, and they are in the same tier right now. One a tier above Jordan Love. I completely disagree. Stroud, Baker, and Kyler Murray. I agree that they're probably in the similar tier. But I also think they're both better, all of those players that we just named, better than Brock Purdy, better than Geno Smith. Jared Goff probably in the same tier, but better than Justin Herbert. And Matthew Stafford, I think, also gets a lot of love because of what he did in the past, as opposed to projecting what he will be doing in 2025. Right now, PFF all over the place, not very high on the Packers. Nicolay Law fan talking text line, text in, where are you on the Green Bay Packers heading into 2025? Do you believe they're still the third best team in the NFC North? Do you believe Jordan Love is outside the top 10 for quarterbacks heading into 2025? Because obviously national media against Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers roster. Coming up, we're going to talk to Mitch Thunder Nellis over from the Mason Crosby Show. He's going to join the show. We'll go through some of these rankings with him, get his perspective, and as well, we will talk about the head coaching rankings heading in to 2025. It's the Pack-A-Day Radio Show live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Tommy Wortz in for Andy Herman, live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Hey, the Brewers fell apart late and lost yesterday to the Rockies. That one was brutal. Gross. Forbes Sports Brewers beat writer Andrew Wagner talks about what went wrong when he joins the Mason Crosby Show, presented by Verizon, the number one network in Milwaukee. That'll be this morning at 10 a.m. on 1250 a.m. and 105.7 FM, The Fan. Before we get over to Mitch Thundernellis, got a caller in. John in Franklin, you're on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. John, how we doing today, my man?
Tommy, we're doing great. Always great to hear your voice, my friend.
What do we got for us, John? You reacting to some of these PFF grades on where they fall on the Packers and Jordan Love stacked up against the rest of the competition heading into next year?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's kind of funny because I kind of looked some of this up, I don't know, several weeks ago, just kind of curious because we see, we're out here in Packer country, so we're seeing things, whether we know it or not, through green and gold glasses.
Sure.
And I wanted to, see kind of where people thought we were. And there is no scenario where we deserve to be thought of as an equal with the Lions or close to the Lions even, or ahead of the Vikings, even though I hate the Vikings.
Yeah.
Okay. Stats are really skewed. Like, our sack numbers aren't that bad, but, we forget that we played the Rams with their entire second string offensive line.
The Titans game, they had 8 sacks in the Titans game. They had like 7 sacks in the Saints game.
Correct.
I understand. Yeah, John.
You better believe it. And they earned all of this. And if it makes them mad, good. Prove everybody wrong. Jordan was disappointing last year. You can tell me his numbers were pretty good or whatever, but the games that really matter, the games I attended against the division, underwhelming performances all the way through when the games mattered. Now, I know late there was some garbage time catch-up and things got closer, but when it down when it mattered, this was a 1-5 team in the division.
Yeah.
And they need to have, if I was the coach, that would be on the flipping bulletin board. Because as a fan, it enrages me. Because I feel they are better. I know they're better than that.
Sure,
so
John.
That shouldn't have happened.
John, so you think it's fair to have them as the third best team in the NFC North heading into next season?
I do.
Okay.
I do. And Jordan Love, it's no fault of his own. He came out firing. We all thought we had our third Hall of Famer, right? We come on. And we knew we were getting a little in front of our skis. We had a second year that was a little underwhelming at times, for sure. And now we got a third season where it's prove it. Let's see where we're at. I hope and I want him to prove us all that he's what we want him to be. But he's got to go out there and do it this year, especially against our division, Tommy.
John, thank you so much for calling in, my man. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Have a great one, my friend.
You too.
There he is. John in Franklin jumps off. You can jump on Nicolay Law Fan Talk and text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250. Joining the show now, Mitch Thundernellis. Follow him on Twitter at ThunderMKE. He is also a co-host of the Mason Crosby Show. One of my all-time friends in the radio business at that as well. How we doing today, Mr. Nellis?
We're good. How you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well here.
Nice.
And if you've been listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show today, which I know you have been, you've been right here during the entire time.
True story.
We are going over some national projections on the Green Bay Packers heading into next season.
Yes.
So before we get into that, the Green Bay Packers offseason, how did you feel about the offseason as a whole for the Green Bay Packers, whether it's from we're going to draft and develop and not worry about free agency, the limited free agent signings? How did you feel about Green Bay's offseason?
I think the word that sums it up for me, Tommy, is whelmed.
Okay.
I don't think I was overwhelmed, but I don't think I was underwhelmed. I think they essentially did what I expected them to do. Coming off an offseason where you sign 2 legitimate stars.
Right.
With McKinney and Jacobs, it does raise your expectations a little bit that maybe the Packers now are going to, like, every year.
Yeah.
They're going to sign a star.
More active every year after that.
And that wasn't the case this year. And I think this year is more the norm. Last year was more the let's be overwhelmed with greatness, make a splash. But in general, I think when it comes to free agents, I think Banks comes in, that's fine. The cornerback comes in from Vegas, that's fine. But and then they bring in Golden, and I think we all rejoiced in what we saw at the draft. That was Mark Murphy's moment. That was the moment to really shine. But if you look at the offseason in the entirety, whelmed. Like they did what they were supposed to do. They didn't make any real big splashes. Golden maybe a little bit. But they didn't have any big failings. They didn't lose anybody they couldn't afford to lose. They didn't miss out on signings that they needed to make. The Jair loss is a loss if Jair's there. But if Jair's not there, they're still short in the secondary. They probably could have brought in another cornerback. But nothing major sticks out to me that like they did or didn't do. So I'm just like whelmed by what they did.
I like what you were saying about the free agency from 2 years ago, right? Like that was such a splash, and
yes.
that was everything the Green Bay Packer fans have been waiting for over the time to go out and get some big names, right? And then I want to compare that the Packers are trying to maybe satisfy the fan with that feeling to drafting a wide receiver in round one this season, right? That's something we're not expecting the Green Bay Packers to ever do. They hadn't done it in 20 years or 22 years, right? And instead of making you feel that feeling in free agency, they made you feel that feeling in the NFL draft. And that's supposed to be the overwhelming feeling of the offseason is the highlights, right? And
absolutely.
That was the free agency signings from 2 years ago, and it was the draft this year. We're joined by Mitch Thunder Nellis of the Mason Crosby Show. Follow him on Twitter at ThunderMKE. So now, Mitch, I'm going to ask you, you heard some of the rankings from the PFF grades and comparing them to the Green Bay Packers versus the rest of the NFL.
Yeah.
And when I tell you that the Green Bay Packers were graded the 13th best team in the NFL, the third best team in the NFC North, your reaction to that?
My first one is kind of one of the things we talked about on the Mason Crosby Show last year, is that, like, there's no way that in my mind I can trust the Minnesota Vikings. You have a quarterback who's never played NFL football before. I don't care how good the rest of your team is. I get it that JJ is one of the wide receivers there. I get it that the defense is pretty good, and that's a really good football team. But I can't put a team with a quarterback who has never played NFL football before in his life ahead of the Green Bay Packers. I just can't do it. And I'm not here to like wave the Packers banner. I'm not here to say the Packers can do no wrong and they're top 5 or whatever they are. But like for them to be entering the season behind them. Now listen, JJ McCarthy could prove us wrong. And at the end of the year, if the Vikings are better than the Packers, I'll say, hey, he overachieved from where I expected a first-year starter to end up, and that's fine. Like I'll say that. I'll say it out loud. I'm not embarrassed to say that. But to sit here at the last day of June and say that a team with a quarterback who has never played football before in the NFL, who wasn't even very good in college. Like, he was a game manager at Michigan. He
was the fourth drafted QB out of that class.
And you said it last week. He was a handoff merchant.
Yes.
Like, he was great at handing the ball to Corum, right?
Right.
To Blake Corum.
And
like,
Edwards, right?
He was really good at that. So that's my first problem. When you looked at those rankings, I think when you look at the Packers, and what you said, they were 13th?
13th.
I think the key here is to go through, like, start at 12 and really figure out, do we believe the Packers are better than this team? Now, it wasn't a ranking of who's better. It's who has a better roster.
It's the rosters heading into 2025.
Okay. Which correlates to how good you are, but it isn't exactly the same question.
I agree. I think that you can argue that there are other positions that get weighted heavier in that ranking system.
Strength of schedule is part of it. What division you play in.
Well, and I
think
that's going to favor Green Bay because they're going to have a third place schedule this year too, which is something that people need to talk about as well. That the Vikings are going to have to play a second place schedule this year. The Lions lose both their coordinators. And I do agree with John and Franklin that I don't think the Packers are in the same conversation as the Detroit Lions. And
not right now.
Not as far as roster, I don't believe so. Yes. Right. We haven't seen enough out of the wide receivers from Green Bay to prove that the weaponry is locked and loaded for Jordan Love. We have some questions on the defensive side with corners as well right now because they let Jair walk and they brought in Nate Hobbs, who's not really a boundary guy. But looking at just some of the names and the teams above the Green Bay Packers, as far as roster construction that they have above them.
Yeah.
At number 12, the Los Angeles Chargers.
I mean, honestly, the Chargers are a team that I feel like I really like their roster, but I don't like them as a team. And that's where we get a little confused with this question here. Is for the past, especially last year, I thought the Chargers had a really nice roster. They just couldn't translate to wins, and I don't see that changing this year. I like Harbaugh as a coach. I really do.
Yes.
And I think Herbert is a good quarterback, not a great quarterback, and I think they have nice players throughout their roster. But for whatever reason, they're not a team that puts it all together. So I like the Packers better than the Chargers, but the Chargers might have a better roster than the Packers.
I think that...
Does that make sense, or am I weird?
I understand what you're trying to go for here, is that overall maybe the Chargers are built better to win football games in your mind than the Green Bay Packers.
But I think the Packers will be better, even though the Chargers have a better roster.
I think PFF is cheating and putting Harbaugh above Matt LaFleur on this list.
Which is legit.
And I
think he should be.
I think that's cheating because if you're going off roster construction, that's not what it is.
That's like my classic argument of I hate when coaches and GMs and owners are on a Mount Rushmore of players.
Right.
I mean, that's a different conversation. You can have those players there, but if you're talking about a roster, that is a 53-man roster. That is independent.
The number 7 roster they have on this list, Mitch, is the Houston Texans.
How?
The number 7 roster constructed. C.J. Stroud, Joe Mixon, Nico Collins, Christian Kirk, Dalton Schultz, and their offensive line. The defensive side has Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's a bunch of guys you probably never heard of. They have Derek Stingley as a corner, who's very good, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson just brought in this year too. But there's no way that the Houston Texans are the 7th best roster in the NFL. That is just complete boulder dash. I don't believe it. That is not what they had a season last year where they started strong. Remember, there was so much anticipation for that Packers-Texans game.
And then Nico got hurt, and then they couldn't really recover, and Diggs got hurt.
Pretty underwhelming season after that last year. Had a lot more hope 7 weeks into the year than they did the last 10 weeks of the season.
If you have a better roster, you can overcome that, like an injury, and they couldn't overcome an injury. That is absolutely ridiculous that the Texans are 7th. That doesn't make any sense to me.
And now the Detroit Lions, they still have near the top.
You just zoomed in, by the way.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Let me get it going.
I mean,
there
I enjoyed
it
personally.
I talk with my hands too.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
Mitch Nellis joining the Mason Crosby Show. Follow him on Twitter. The Pack a Day Radio Show from the Mason Crosby Show. Follow him on Twitter at ThunderMKE. The Detroit Lions, do you still feel that they are a top tier roster constructed in the NFL right now?
Roster constructed, yes. The only thing that could change that for me is if Jared Goff regresses to a point where it was clearly Ben Johnson and had nothing to do with Goff. But as long as Goff is competent this year and doesn't self-destruct, yes, the Lions are in the top tier. Absolutely.
They probably have the best 1-2 running back punch in the league right now between Gibbs and Montgomery.
Man, you love Gibbs. He's so good.
He's so good. If he wasn't so good, I wouldn't love him as much. He's so good.
That's a good point.
And I have another piece now from here because I think they are cheating with Jim Harbaugh being above the Chargers, being above the Green Bay Packers on this tier list.
Yep.
But it doesn't affect the Lions in this ranking. It feels like the Lions are number 3 because they were a successful team last year.
Yep.
Their team was full of studs.
Yep.
But everyone knows that the cornerback or the coordinators on that team were really calling most of the shots.
Sure.
Offense and defense was called by 2 coordinators.
Although Campbell's a great leader.
Campbell
I will say that.
Is a great leader. Well, I have another list here. This one was posted 6 days ago. It is the top 10 head coaches heading into 2025, according to PFF. Dalton Wasserman, again, on this list. So he only goes to 10 on this list.
Yep.
At the top of the list, do you have any guesses?
Andy Reid.
Andy Reid is the number 1 coach returning back to the team that he was coaching last season, according to PFF.
Yep.
Yes. Do you have a guess as to who number 2 is?
Dan Campbell.
It is not Dan Campbell.
Ooh, okay. I mean, it could be. There's a lot of guys it could be. So who is it? It's not Sirianni, is it?
It is Sean Payton.
Sean Payton. I mean, listen, Denver overachieved last year. They went 10-7 with a roster that was
Mitch, he's not even
terrible.
the best coach named Sean in the NFL. Sean McVay comes in at number 3, and he should absolutely be ahead of Sean Payton on this list. John Harbaugh is number 4.
Listen, both went 10-7 last year, and the Rams had a much better roster than the Broncos.
I would agree to that. I can agree with that.
Okay.
John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens, number 4.
Okay.
Jim Harbaugh is number 6.
Yeah.
In between them, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is, I think, again, suffering from, I've never missed the playoffs syndrome.
Right.
So that everyone thinks he is this phenomenal, awesome coach. He hasn't won a Super Bowl since before the Packers won their last Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He has not done much in the playoffs. I don't think he's won a playoff game in almost a decade right now.
It feels like that long. And what I would say to that is like, yes, we all have this romanticized version of Mike Tomlin. Like, he's tough. He talks tough. He's smart. He overachieves with bad rosters, and he does do that. But he's not him anymore. He's just not. And it's I would still have Tomlin probably 10th, 9th, 11th, probably on that list somewhere. But just I don't know. Maybe he is that good. Maybe they're a 5-12 team that he gets to 10-7 every year.
Do you know where Matt LaFleur is on this list?
Probably 13th.
He's not on the list. He is not in the top 10.
Oh yeah, no. He's
and
not
they
in the top 10.
They only go up to 10 now. They are rounding it out.
I agree with that. LaFleur's not in my top 10.
Kyle Shanahan, Nick Sirianni, Dan Campbell, Kevin Stefanski is at number 10 of the Cleveland Browns.
What? I mean, has he done
He won
something?
Coach of the Year a few years ago, right? When it was Joe Flacco, or not Joe Flacco. Was it? No, it wasn't Joe Flacco. When the Browns made a little run with Baker Mayfield, he won it.
Yes, with Baker,
Joe Flacco obviously going to be the quarterback this year.
Yeah.
But
or not.
I still believe that Matt LaFleur is a better head coach than probably 2 people on this list. Stefanski and Tomlin.
For sure.
Stefanski and Tomlin being
probably
on this list
Tomlin.
is kind of disrespectful to Matt LaFleur.
That is a career achievement award. That's what he gave to Tomlin on here. It's not like he gave him the career achievement award. He didn't give him.
Well, they did the same thing with Sean Payton.
Yeah, except that again, last year Sean Payton took a 5-12 team and got to 10-7 with
What
them.
a slap in the face to Nick Sirianni after winning the Super Bowl last year, and you have him at 8.
I mean, people don't think he's a great coach. People think they won because they're that good and that he got out of the way and didn't make enough mistakes. But that doesn't mean he's a great coach. You win you can win. I mean, I can make the argument John Harbaugh's won. John Harbaugh has been getting it done at Baltimore forever, especially in the regular season, not necessarily in the playoffs. But like John Harbaugh could be, after Andy Reid, the best coach. I can make that easy argument. So I think, listen, even PFF wants the clicks, Tommy. Even they're going to throw a few wrinkles into every list they make because that's all lists are. That's all power rankings are. That's why I hate power rankings. That's why I hate these lists, because all they are is clickbait for us. And listen, it just gave us a segment, right? We're in Wisconsin, so we're mad that Matt LaFleur's not on our list. Well, some other fan base is mad that their coach isn't on the list, or that their coach isn't higher on the list.
Do you think that the Packers, Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur, are criticized or hurt by this list because they are relying on development because of the lack of offseason moves, acquisitions this year, and they are relying on uncertainty more than they are on established players?
Yes and no. I mean, they still signed the 2 guys from last year.
Right.
So they still have that. Who's Washington's head coach?
Is
it Brian something?
No, the Commanders' head coach is Dan Quinn. It's Dan Quinn, remember. Yes.
Right, okay. So did Dan Quinn not prove last year that he's a top 10 coach?
You would think getting to the NFC Championship game.
They went 12-5 and got to the NFC Championship game with
a
no
rookie.
expectations, with a rookie quarterback. I mean, I'd have Dan Quinn on my top 10 Just based. If this is based on like right now, today, who are the best coaches? Like, how do you not have Dan Quinn on that list? Dan Quinn. There's nothing more he could have done last year.
Also, another career achievement guy. He's coached in the Super Bowl. He lost, obviously, that game with the Falcons, and he's been a great coordinator that ended up landing him another head coaching job.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, and maybe even the Green Bay Packers, a little bit disrespected on this list. And I don't believe they are going to win the NFC North. I still think that I would favor Detroit despite losing their coordinators because of the success, because of the roster construction. I would favor Detroit. But I don't think that you can favor. Also, if they're going to have the Minnesota Vikings at number 8 and Kevin O'Connell's not in the top 10 coaches right now.
That's bizarre.
Makes no sense.
They must love the roster. I mean, again, there's a separation of roster and head coach. They must think he's not a great head coach, but they love the roster. It's not a prediction of where the teams will finish next year. This is the talent that has been assembled. And then, so they would probably argue when they come out with their season predictions that Minnesota will not be very great because they have a great roster but not a great coach, and so they will probably underachieve. I just want to give out one more thing about why the Packers and LaFleur are being hurt. You look at, I have last year's standings, top to bottom, the league standings, okay?
Yes.
So the Lions go 15-2, 6-0 in their conference. The Chiefs go 15-2, 5-1 in their conference. The Packers go 11-6, 1-5 in their conference. If you look at just conference records, you have to go all the way down to the 6-11 49ers to find the next team that finished under 500 in their conference. You figure out, you go 3-3 in your conference, and all of this goes away. And the Packers are in the top 10, and LaFleur's in the top 10 because you're 13-4. You go 500 in your conference, and all of these arguments go away, and the Packers prove themselves.
Mitch Thunder Ellis joining the Pack-A-Day radio show. Follow him on Twitter at ThunderMKE. One more thing before I get you out of here, Mitch, and then you'll get all set up.
Boy, here we go.
Spiffy nice for the Mason Crosby show coming up.
True.
Just about 15 minutes from now. After hearing all this and trying to remove all green and gold glasses like John and Franklin had said, projecting just based on the offseason, based on expectation, the Green Bay Packers will finish blank place in the NFC North next year.
The Green Bay Packers will finish in second place in the NFC North next year.
Behind the Detroit Lions?
Behind the Detroit Lions. And by one game, it'll be 13-4 to 12-5, or 12-5 to 11-7. It'll be one game.
What do you think the divisional record is? It's got to be better.
I think it's 3-3.
Okay. Splitting with everyone?
Yeah. Splitting with everyone. Yeah. It's hard for. I think they beat the Bears twice though. Like maybe they go 4-2. Maybe they do get to 12-5.
Okay.
I'll give them. You know what? I think they go 4-2. I think they split.
Just convinced yourself.
Yeah,
there.
I did. Well, it's also convincing myself that the Bears still suck, which is fun for all of us, right?
We try to remove all the green and gold glasses, but that'll never get removed there. No. Mitch Thunder Nellis joining the Pack-A-Day radio show. Mitch, anything you want to plug? Anything you want to get off your chest here? How was Strawberry Fest yesterday? Did you go to Strawberry Fest?
I did go to Strawberry Fest yesterday. It was great. We had the strawberry lemonade. We had a little strawberry shortcake. Also, Saturday, I got to be the guest umpire for the Badger Marquette celebrity softball showdown there in Oconomowoc with the Lake Country Dockhounds. That was a lot of fun.
What was the final in that one?
I think 12-10 Badgers.
Okay.
I think 12-10.
As usual at top. Nice.
Yeah. They lost on a walk-off home run by Novak last year. This year, they dominated. We'll talk more about that during the show as well.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Mitch. Have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you in 10 minutes, all right?
Perfect. Sounds good.
It's the Pack-A-Day radio show live from the 1250 AM 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. When we come back, final thought of the day. We'll get you guys all wrapped up here on the Pack-A-Day radio show and ready to go for the Mason Crosby show from 9 a.m. to 11 today. It's the Pack-A-Day radio show live from the 1250 AM 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show, live from the 1250 AM, 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Tommy Wortz in for Andy Herman today, getting you guys caught up on all things Packers in the national landscape, I guess, today. We're going to be joined by Ryan Horvat tomorrow, the BetMGM Network. I'm in for Andy Herman all week this week. No local programming on Friday. It is the 4th of July. I hope everyone has a safe and exciting holiday weekend, has some great plans. The weather's been awesome the last few days. I am really conflicted on how to feel about the Green Bay Packers because I don't want to sound biased. And I like to think that I am one of the more realistic Packer fans that are on these airwaves, maybe in all of the wilderness, wherever it is. But seeing these lists from PFF, who I enjoy reading, I enjoy watching, I enjoy their stats and how they break things down, to have Jordan Love at the 12th best quarterback in the NFL. They have the Green Bay Packers as the 13th best team, and they do not rank Matt LaFleur in the top 10 returning NFL head coaches entering 2025. It seems like a little bit of disrespect. And I think that there is some hypocrisy in the list where they don't think that Kevin O'Connell is a top 10 returning head coach, but the Minnesota Vikings do have a top 10 roster returning. It doesn't make sense. If they think that Andy Reid is the best coach, I understand. If they think that Sean Payton is the second best coach returning in the NFL next year, I do not understand. I don't know where that goes. The Broncos roster was much lower on the list than Sean Payton was. I think they got a bump from that. I think the Chargers got a bump from that. It doesn't make sense to me. Last thing they always do on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show, Potawatomi Sportsbook, final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan.
I had talked about last week, Tuesday, when I hosted for Andy Herman, that pressure was kind of the theme of the show for the Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur, the roster in general, right? I think my tone has completely changed based on these national outlooks of Green Bay heading into 2025. They might be under the radar at this point. Not a lot of expectations. It sounds like a very middle-of-the-road team, according to the rest of national media, heading into 2025. This might be the perfect chance for the Green Bay Packers to strike. For the Green Bay Packers to establish that, hey, we are relying on growth and development and developing within the organization. And the only reason that free agents are available for these other teams to sign is because the other team didn't want them. The Green Bay Packers believe in their process, they believe in their development, and they believe that they can be better than what the national media portrays them as. Tommy Wortz here, been filling in for Andy Herman on the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. As I mentioned, Ryan Horvat will join the Pack-A-Day Radio Show from BetMGM Network. The Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis is coming up next here, presented by Verizon, the number one network in Milwaukee. Drew Wagner going to talk about the Brewers at 10 a.m. on that show. I'll be producing as well. Make sure you guys stick around for the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Thunder Nellis. Live from the 1250 a.m., 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Hey, go Pack, go.